I wanted to, at minimum, replace my corporate salary. And I realized that I said that and I did have that goal, but I didn't actually get underneath what it would mean to get there. And so what I realized is after year one was a blur, like mid 2020 to mid 2021. I don't think I got um, even half a night's sleep on most days. I was just working around the clock. Um, by the second year of business, I was trying to like, oh, I have books. Like, what are my numbers? What am I even doing? Because I wasn't paying myself. Another lesson that I eventually learned. I wasn't even paying myself. I was just, and I had teams that I would bring together to support our bigger clients. And so I finally started looking at my numbers and I was like, well, wait a minute. I have replaced my corporate salary in terms of revenue, but not in terms of profit, and definitely not in terms of what's coming into my pocket. And I am working 5 times as hard as I have ever worked for anyone. This does not make the math is not mathing. This is not what I signed up for. Let's figure this out.
Hello, Olanike, and welcome. I am so excited to have this opportunity to chat with you today. First of all, to thank you for joining us at Swagger School, but really to give folks an opportunity to get a little behind the scenes on what it takes to land more corporate clients. So would love it if you could introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are and how you serve corporate clients.
Nice. Okay, so my name is Olanike A. Mensah. I'm a workplace equity strategist. And what that means is that I help leaders embed equity into their organizations in sustainable ways by leveraging the power of integrated people and culture data. I use that to design actionable roadmaps and strategic plans that can really transform an organization and make the environment more equitable and inclusive and nurture a community that allows a mosaic of people to thrive and to see the fruits of their hard work in the workplace. So I'm the stewarding founder of Mosaic Consulting, and that is the vehicle through which I do that work.
I love, love, love that so much. And I think it's important just to give a little bit of background, right? That we met years ago. Okay. So we actually met years ago. I'm going to just full transparency confess, you were the first corporate client that reached out to me. Okay. So when I was just right launching my business, you were the first corporate client. Okay. I got this message on LinkedIn from a big bank, okay, in my area. They wanted to invite me to come in to speak, and that was you on the other end. So, talk to folks a little bit about this because I think sometimes people, have this misconception that you got to choose one path or the other. You can either serve individual consumers, B2C, or organizations, B2B. But I believe that you can do both. And so, you originally, right, we originally met on LinkedIn. Share a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so I was working, and when Anniedi says a big bank, I was working at a global financial firm. We're talking like Fortune 100, maybe even 50, global financial firm. And in addition to my work in the tech division there, I was also spearheading the DEI initiatives for my executive and my team. I was sort of in a chief of staff kind of role, but I was also involved in ERGs, local councils, global councils, and all the things. Um, and we were putting on our annual summit for the Black Employee Resource Group and looking for speakers. And I don't remember how I learned about you. Now, like, I have to go figure out where that came from. It could have been somebody on the planning team that said, "Oh, you should check out Anniedi." So yeah, that was what was happening on my end, and I think this was in 2020. So this was we were leading into the pandemic, and we're still planning this huge event, not realizing that everything was about to shut down. And then we all got thrown for a loop after that. But yeah, I think as one of the co-chairs for our group at the time, we were looking to have an event that spoke to all of our members and folks that would come to the event on a professional level. Like, how do you, exist and thrive in this environment? So we definitely wanted to talk about professional things, but we're also very keen to also talk about well-being, like how they are doing as people, as humans. And yeah, and so that was what led to reaching out. And like, I no longer work there. Now I'm working full-time in my consulting practice, and we got back together again. I found myself in Smager School, and we're back together again. And so yes, to your point, um, people will move into different positions and different environments and in life. But I think that in spite of how that event ended up getting sidetracked by the pandemic, that was a divine connection that we made, so that years later we could come back together in this space in our new, in our new evolved selves.
Can
So
you imagine? So at that time, I wasn't even thinking about corporate clients. Okay, full transparency. I was not thinking about serving corporate clients, but you had reached out. I want to know, I made that pivot, right, to go into serving organizations, and you were making a similar pivot. What was it that made you take the leap? What was it that made you step out and launch your own business? Talk to us about making that shift.
yes, very interesting. Alignment there that we didn't even know at the time. So I was in between jobs from like the fall of 2015 to the early part of 2016. And I actually didn't start working at said bank until late spring 2016. But in that 5 or 6 months that I was looking for work, I had the light bulb moment that I wanted to become a DEI consultant. Actually, at the time, even as what was that, 2025, fall of 2015, the prevalent language was still just diversity and inclusion, D and I. DEI and all these other acronyms are new, folks. But at the time, because I had been doing equity work in different ways since high school, really, I realized that that's the one thread that was consistent in all the other roles and workplaces that I had been in. And so I registered my business in early 2016. I formatted it and like ideated on it and had stuff all over my wall. 2015 going to 2016, I registered it. And then I was meeting with somebody and talking about my experience. And they were like, "Do you come work at the bank?" And I was like, "Do what?" Not looking for a job there, but that's how that came together. And I thought, well, I just registered this. I just realized that I want to be a consultant and do this work, but a steady paycheck is nice. So I negotiated being able to do equity work as part of my role. And so that's what made it okay for me to take that job and to be able to have some financial security. And it allowed me to build my business up, in the 9 to 5 hours and the weekends, so that I could then really go full time much later. So that's the story. So I had already registered and I had a couple of clients by 2018 that I was just, taking vacation time to do the work and evening hours and weekends. I was working around the clock because I had a really demanding job at the corporate at the company. So yeah, about 2018, I had another like come to Jesus moment that I really wanted to exit. Like, not immediately, but I realized that I really wanted to focus really full time on helping organizations with their culture, their environment, their equity policies and goals. So I made a plan. I made a 2-year plan in 2018 that by 2020, I would probably be ready to exit. And I could get into the details of the plan, but there were specific things that I was doing to get myself ready and to get my team members ready, even though they didn't know what was happening, so that when I pivoted out, it wasn't too disruptive. And little did I know that 2020 would also be the year of the pandemic, and it was really, really scary to quit a really good job, okay, in the middle of the pandemic. but that's what I did. And by then I did have a few clients and I had done a ton of pro bono work, just, figuring out consulting. And yeah, I I left that job a day before my birthday, a landmark birthday that year. I went home. I shared a toast, a champagne toast with the family. Well, the kid had some juice in her champagne glass, a celebratory toast. And and then immediately after that, the murder of George Floyd hit all of our screens. And yeah, and so like my consulting practice, all of a sudden I thought I was going to have this easy ramp into building the foundation of my business and making sure my back end stuff was solid. And immediately I was bombarded because I had put my name on a couple of lists of consultants that could help organizations. And yeah, I had to build the car while I was driving it. And so um yeah, part of the reason that I ended up back um reflecting on where do I want to take the business and how do I make sure that I'm not trading, what do you always say, Anniedi? Anniedi always says, trading time for dollars, I think is the terminology. How do I make sure that, like, I was just in this rut where I was just in this pace of work that was not sustainable. And I think part of that is because as soon as I went full time back in 2020, I was immediately on that hamster wheel. So being in swagger school and having the support has been really critical for me to kind of resettle and be able to move forward with greater intention, perhaps than in the beginning.
So let's pick up right there, right? Because you mentioned, right, when you were in that corporate role, a steady paycheck is nice, right? And I'm gonna be candid, right? When you have African parents, okay, every Nigerian parent wants their child to be a doctor or a lawyer. So when you say I'm starting a
Doctor,
business,
lawyer, engineer, maybe nurse,
okay,
maybe
so
as the backup.
when you say you're starting a business, this can feel a little trepidatious. Like, what was your goal? Did you envision replacing your former corporate salary? Like, what was your vision for the business when you launched?
I wanted to, at minimum, replace my corporate salary. And I realized that I said that and I did have that goal, but I didn't actually get underneath what it would mean to get there. And so what I realized is after year one was a blur, like mid 2020 to mid 2021. I don't think I got um, even half a night's sleep on most days. I was just working around the clock. Um, by the second year of business, I was trying to like, oh, I have books. Like, what are my numbers? What am I even doing? Because I wasn't paying myself. Another lesson that I eventually learned. I wasn't even paying myself. I was just, and I had teams that I would bring together to support our bigger clients. And so I finally started looking at my numbers and I was like, well, wait a minute. I have replaced my corporate salary in terms of revenue, but not in terms of profit, and definitely not in terms of what's coming into my pocket. And I am working 5 times as hard as I have ever worked for anyone. This does not make the math is not mathing. This is not what I signed up for. Let's figure this out. And so I think that Anniedi and her partner had a pop-up session or something that was specifically about leveraging your IP or something around that, like now maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. What is this about? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I want to do because this is not sustainable. What I'm doing right now is not it. I can't keep this up. And so that was probably another year before I actually registered for Swagger School.
Absolutely. So that is where we met again. Okay, that's where our paths crossed again. You joined us for a pop-up event. Okay, we were talking all about how to leverage your right IP so that you can work smarter, not harder, how to really drive more profitability when it comes to creating your B2B deals, and how to think about this so you can stop trading that time for money. So that was the moment we met again. What was it that made you circle back and ultimately join Swagger School to take your corporate contract to the next level. What was it that made the shift for you to say, you know what, I'm ready for the full program?
When I joined the pop-up, I was in another course that was more about like the nuts and bolts. Like what is, if you say you want to have the foundation of your business, like I'm rebuilding the foundation because I just had to like, walk in, plan and do at the same time, out the gate. What does it mean? Like, what have I overlooked? And that was one of the I would say like professional development experiences that really got me to start looking at my numbers more closely. Because that instructor was like, "What are your books? What are your financial goals? What are like where's your flow sheet?" Now I'm a business major undergrad and I have a master's degree in nonprofit management, and so this is stuff that I know. Like I know this, but I hadn't had time to really sit and actually pull up, the financial statement and all of that. So I started doing that, and that was reinforcing the idea that I really needed to figure out what my business structure and my business model and my service model really needed to look like. Um, at that time, I was also in a drop period. So for you freelancers and consultants, it's like feast or famine. I was in a drought period. I had one full-time employee that was and is fantastic. And I was realizing that there's a runway here, and it's a certain point, I'm not going to be able to pay her. And no new contracts are happening. So there were some like really moments of clarity that something needed to change. And so the other piece that I would say is that after realizing that I had to, part ways with my full-time employee because I didn't have enough stability and continuity of business to not put her livelihood in jeopardy. Like I was really transparent with her and I said, this is what's going on. I got you until this time at your current salary. I think depending on what happens, I could probably get you on part-time for a little bit longer. We can keep checking in, but please start looking for work because I don't, and you can leave me at any time, but I don't want to have to surprise you with like, this is the last week or whatever. So after crunching all those numbers and that playing out, I was like, okay, I've got capacity now. And it really also forced me to really pull back in all the things that I was doing. Like what is really core that I need to maintain? And there was a group of clients that were really core and I was like, okay, I'm going to maintain this. This will at least keep me afloat. And what do I need to do to actually pivot? So I started thinking about a pivot. What pivot do I have to make? In December, actually, I gather with my subcontractors. I call them the Mosaic Collective. We used to gather regularly. We still do actually, but we've spaced it out a little bit more. But we used to gather regularly, and the topic in December was pivots. Like, what pivots do we need to make? I was like, who gonna check you, boo? Like, you can pivot. It's your business. Nobody's telling you how and like how this has to look, right? So how can you reshape this to actually fit who you are and how you want to be, how you want to live, etc. So that was happening in December. I come into the spring and I say goodbye to my full-time employee. I start looking for a virtual assistant just to help me, maintain, some of the flurry of activity. I went through like 5 of them. It was just like an incredibly disruptive season. But sometime along the way, I don't know how we reconnected in that time, but we reconnected. I saw something on LinkedIn or what, I don't know, or maybe you sent me an email. I don't know what it was. And it was the right time because I was in this moment of pivot. And I already was clear that I needed to stop trading time for money, that I had already created now several, pieces of IP, workshop series and frameworks and models and tools and things like that that I was using with my clients. And the message resonated because I was like, I'm in a position to do this, to do what she's talking about. And because I only have to worry about my income, and thankfully my spouse is able to sustain our livelihood. That's a privilege that many people don't have. I happen to have that. I can invest in this at this time because mindset wise, I'm ready. Business wise, I feel like my business is matured to a place where I'm ready to apply whatever I learned from this. And so yeah, so the stars just aligned after like this 3-year journey of knowing each other that we had been on. The stars aligned in that moment in all those ways that I was like, this is the time, because I was already planning to slow business down even more to figure out what this shift looks like for me and for Mosaic. And I was like, this is time. This is the time to invest time and energy, not just money, but time and energy into this course to be able to figure out where I'm going next and to be able to go there with intention. Um, yeah.
What a beautiful moment to be able to have that pause, to be able to reimagine the path ahead, and to design a business, right? A business model that actually centers your own well being. How extraordinary that is. So you joined us at Swagger School. So you raised your hand, you marched right in there, right? And you got down to business. Share a little bit about what that experience was like for folks who are curious about the program, not sure what to expect. Share a little bit about what your experience was like after you joined us at Swagger School in our Seal the Corporate Deal program.
It was clarifying. You're going through the content, the Swagger School content, especially if you've been in business for a while and you're not just like early in the phase, and you're learning these frameworks and these like processes and ideas, and you're learning from Anniedi, but you're also learning from the cohort. um and you're realizing, for me, I'm realizing that I'm realizing a lot of things. I'm realizing the pieces of the puzzle that I've been missing in all the things, different, like business processes that I was engaged in. Like, oh, okay. I had 3 out of the 5 pieces. Those 2 things I'm not doing very well. Ah, okay, I got it. And immediately I'm able to take those 2 things and not just apply it to the specific, like business process that we're talking about, or, like prospect interaction or whatever it is that we're talking about, but I'm also able to take that and start applying it to things that we didn't even explicitly talk about in the course. So it was just immediately like applicable content. Um, I'm realizing that there are some things that I knew and I was doing already. So it was there was validation, along with that clarity of the areas, the gaps, in my business processes. It also made me a better, so now I have 2 staff members. They're not full-time because I don't know if I don't know if or when I'll go back to having a full-time employee again. But after that anxiety of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to like put someone's livelihood at jeopardy, I was like, I'm not doing that anytime soon. I don't want that kind of stress. But I did need support. So I have 2 contractors that work. I have a virtual assistant and an operations manager that work with me. And I think I'm a better leader because of the content as well, because I'm able to communicate what I need them to be thinking about because I'm learning it for myself. So if I'm not the one typing up the proposal or whatever, I can tell my operations manager, this is the order that I want you to put the content in. This is what I want you to include. This, or don't send them anything. We need to have a conversation first. Like there's just like clarity now in being able to make the call and understanding things that I was maybe applying as a checklist, kind of like, oh, you do this, you send out a proposal, then an da, 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 da. Now I can get beneath it and look at like the principle of the relationship that you're building with a prospect and with a client. And while you're even in the midst of an engagement, one of my biggest learnings is that I'm not nurturing relationships for like ongoing work. I'm just like, we're in this project. I'm helping you right now. That was great. Yay. The project is over. Give me some feedback so I can do better for the next client. Okay, let's keep in touch. Like, why are you going to find new clients? You already have somebody that loves you right in front of you. Like, that was another big learning, is like, so what does it look like to nurture relationships with existing clients and continue to support them on their journey? So there's just so much. There's so much that I was taking in, that was validating, but also clarifying. And then the clarification of like, these are the gaps, also comes with guidance to help you figure out, how to apply it. And because of where I was in my business, maturity, the content was immediately applicable. Like in real time, I was able to be like, oh yeah, that next call that I have with that person, that organization, that prospect or that client, I'm incorporating things immediately.
Absolutely. We sometimes joke and say it's a real world learning lab, right? It's not about
Yeah.
you see work in worksheets, it's actually the deal making, closing actual deals. That's your only assignment. Talk a little bit about how it was to have a thought partner, how it was to be in the cohort, right? So you're going through the content, but you're also in real time dealing with active proposals and pitches. Share a little bit about what that experience is like for folks as well.
Um, it's the ability to be in an environment, right, where you can really talk about your business ideas, your business questions, your business anxieties, your business plans, with other people who are similarly trying to figure it out, is really powerful, right? It's I mean, it's like what you would imagine would happen if you're in the middle of any sort of life transition or change and you're in a group of people who are in that same place with you and you're trying to figure it out. So sometimes we'll be on calls and someone else is asking a question and you're like, I never realized I had that question. I don't know. I don't know about that. I gotta write it down. Let me take that note. And sometimes, there might be conversations or questions or whatever that aren't immediately applicable for me, but I'm still taking that knowledge in. And at some point in the future down the line, then it might be something that I can incorporate. And so, yeah, being in that cohort model is incredibly valuable because you're listening to other people who work through challenges. You're also able to give back to other people. um I remember we were on a call once and I don't know what the specifics were, but it was about somebody not getting paid. And I was like, no, 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 no. No, get your money, get your coin. I mean, I didn't really have to say it. Anniedi was there coaching them, but I was like, yep, yeah, plus one. But yeah, there's like encouragement that's happening. You're able to uplift each other, but you're also able to give and take, take all the take nuggets, from the cohort members as well as Anniedi, but you're also able to contribute. And that feels good too. That feels good to be like, wow, I do know something. And they're not as far along maybe as you are in some areas, and you're able to help someone else, save them some time and energy lost by being able to give back to them. So it's a really special part of the program.
Absolutely. It truly feels in many ways like a think tank, right? With the best and brightest,
Mhm.
right? Building the future of
Yeah.
B2B. So now that you're sitting, I know you're still in the midst of the program, but how are you sitting at that negotiation table differently as a result of being with us at Swagger School? What's been maybe one of the biggest shifts, maybe a mindset shift, maybe a way that you're negotiating that you can share with us as an impact that came out of your participation in the program?
I'm thinking about the overall journey that my clients are on and thinking about how I can continue to support them, beyond whatever the initial engagement might be. And I'm very careful though that I don't go back to where I was, which is like I can be everything to everybody because that's what had me passed out. um and not sleeping or not being a healthy human, that like I don't want to go back there. So it's not like just throw things at them just to like, keep a client or to extend the relationship. But what I realized that I was doing is I didn't want to be salesy, especially because of, I do what I do because I want true freedom, I want true equity, true liberation for all people. And there's a set of values that are behind that. And so I'm not just out here trying to sell you anything just to make it all money and good money. So that doesn't make me feel good. And so I had swung so far that even when the client is giving me the feedback and saying, we think we want another workshop on this and this and this, I would just say, yeah, great. Keep us in mind for that. And that would be it. Like they're literally asking for services and I'm not hearing it as you can do that. You can help them. You can support them. I'm hearing it as, well, don't be too salesy. Don't come on too strong. Just say like, yeah, we can do that and let us know without any follow up, without, so that is a huge shift. First of all, I'm listening better when I'm hearing things now. I'm able to interpret it differently. I'm able to think about offering support to clients as offering support to clients, and realize that there is a clear difference between that and being the annoying, salesperson who's like badgering you and trying to like weasel you into, parting ways with your dollars, right? So it's just gotten really clear for me. So now I can go into, or I can be in the middle of a conversation and hear something and respond, and know like what follow-up looks like and where it feels good for me and how it feels good for me to follow up and to, offer services to folks. Um, and at the same time, ensuring that I'm offering things that will be impactful and helpful for them, but also sit within how I want to continue to work, which is the other part that has gotten really clear for me. Is I'm very clear on who I want to work with, how I want to do that work, the ways that I can deliver that work. And so I can say no easily now to the things that are going to pull me away from that sweet spot, and easily recognize the things that I'm like, yes, this is an alignment. Let me invest energy into this, or into this client, or this, engagement, or whatever it might be. So all of that shows up in every interaction now with new prospects and existing clients.
Absolutely. I think there's so many misnomers when it comes to B2B sales strategy. People think you have to be pushy. They think you have to be inauthentic. They think you have to be easy, right? And it's really about developing a sales style that works with your authentic leadership style. And how extraordinary it has been to witness your journey along the way, right? To go from being sort of inundated with work, right, to really overwhelming yourself and saying, how do I sort of make a way where I can pay myself, right? I can actually carve out more space, right, to be able to think strategically about where we want to move next. So powerful. And I think oftentimes people think it's about getting to yes, right? Getting them to say yes by any means. But you just pointed out that sometimes it's about determining what you want to say no to, what no longer feels in alignment, what is not in alignment with your values, right? And how to create greater equity, not just for the folks that you're serving, but also for yourselves.
One of the things that has been really challenging about being an entrepreneur and, running a small business, is figuring out how to do it in a way that is aligned with my values. So that's where like the not salesy thing comes from. It's like, I don't want to do it that way. And I am highlighting that because I see very few people, very few business coaches and business courses and programs that incorporate that perspective into how they are coaching and advising, business owners to run their business. I mentioned that I was in another course earlier, and that's somebody that's, well known and, whatever, very successful, but they didn't have that element of like, how do we do business, but with an equity mindset, right? With a ethos that says a lot of the way that we do business is oppressive. It's extractive. It's just wrong. And I found myself in that course bristling a lot, like, no, that's actually not good advice. Like, no, no. Thank you for these nuggets. All of that though, you can keep that. And that's something that is unique about the way that Anniedi coaches and teaches, is to really ensure, I think it comes from her value set. Otherwise it wouldn't be present, because it's not present. You see it everywhere. Like, I probably could count on one hand the number of people, business owners and coaches and guides that I've seen, like, okay, they're weaving this ethos into the way that they're talking about and doing business. And so that's just something that's very unique that I think is a really, again, special part of the experience, is that You're not going to be coached or guided to do business the way that business is like supposedly done. It's going to be in a way that is ethical, a way that cares for people and humanity in general, and a way that's going to feel good for you, especially if you're already operating out of that space. That's very unique. So I wanted to make sure to say that.
Thank you so much for saying that, Olanike, because I think sometimes people have a lot of options, they have a lot of choices, right? And they want to ensure that programs are the best fit for them. So I really appreciate you highlighting that. Wonderful. One parting word that you would leave for somebody who's thinking about joining Swagger School on the fence, a word that you might leave with them to encourage them along their journey.
Come in being really clear on what you want to get out of it. Because the content is so good and is so rich that, I mean, you can come in and just and view it as like a general, like broad training, like just teach me everything and I'll absorb it. But I think I got the most out of it because I was really clear on the change that I wanted to make. And so I could, as I'm experiencing the content, I could keep applying it to like, okay, where am I trying to go and how is this going to help me there? And it informed my questions so that I can get the most out of the live calls that we would have. It's just, so I would say definitely do it. Maybe I should have started there. Do it if you can. There is a payment plan. Even that was done in an anti-capitalist way, now that I think of it. I don't know if you want to me to say all that, but even the payment plan was part of the like, oh, she's doing this a little differently. Usually when people put you on a payment plan, that means it's going to cost you more. There's no like, you can be on a payment plan until this point and the total will still be the same. I don't think I've ever seen that. And I even I took that, even the process of signing up when I saw that, I was like, huh, that was a lesson. So there's just so much rich goodness in the course, in the experience, in the cohort. I feel like it's information that will just keep on giving even after the course is over. Swagger School is it. Like, if you can, do it. You won't regret it.
It has just been extraordinary to witness your journey, to be honored, right? To be able to be a guide for you on the path. And I just can't wait to see where the journey leads you because the sky is truly the limit. So share with us, where can people keep up with you? Where can they learn more about Mosaic?
You can find me on LinkedIn is the social media platform where I'm most active. So if you just look up my name on LinkedIn, or if you search for hashtag Mosaic for Equity, 4 as in the numeric 4, hashtag Mosaic for Equity, that's on most of my posts, so I'll pop up if you search for that. You can also find me at the website, which is the same, mosaicforequity.com. And I'm also on Instagram, but I play on Instagram. So if you want to kind of see a more, laid back, the things that I'm laughing at, the things that are making me think, the things that are making me laugh, the things that are grossing me out, whatever it is, you can get a more personal look into who I am on Instagram. And it's the same, at Mosaic for Equity, and you'll find me on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Olanike, for spending some time with me today. I think one of the most memorable moments for me was when you said, I want to do this differently. I want to take the assets I've already built and think about my IP in new ways, be able to generate revenue without even having to be physically present, to go from being on the brink of burnout, ready to give up, right? And really transform and pivot the business into one that you truly are thriving in and flourishing in. That, to me, has been the biggest reward. So I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. And I want to wish you continued luck on your journey. And until next time, stay safe, be well, and always remember to get your sparkle on.